Hello, everybody, and welcome to Turnpike Takes, where we talk New Jersey basketball all season long. The college basketball is just getting into full swing, and some New Jersey teams played on Monday, some teams play tonight, and some teams play on Wednesday. We're going to cover it all season long here on Turnpike Takes. Starting off with a little bit of review, FDU started off against number 16 Iowa State. As expected, they got crushed 50 to 88. Not many standouts for FDU in this game, but but they didn't look too bad in this game. Um, David Yevtik, guard, for 14.6 rebounds, 2 assists. Eric Parnell, another guard, 13 points and a rebound. Other than that, not too many standouts in this game. Next up, Ryder played Virginia, another crushing loss, 53 to 87. Flash Burton, their guard, one of their top scorers last year, averaging about 9 points, did have 15 in the first half. Did only finish the game with 17 points. Zion Cruz, their other guard, starting from last year, only had 7 in this game. Next, the jersey on jersey matchup: St. Peter's versus Seton Hall. Big win for Seton Hall, 50 to 77. The freshman Najai Hines looked great in the win, 12 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 blocks. Their most anticipated transfer, Bud Clark, did not play as well, 8 points, 2 assists in only 25 minutes, but playing an opponent like St. Peter's, getting a 27-point win. Not too worried about his production. He should pick up in the bigger games that they play. And then the forward, Stephon Payne, put up 11 points. Start the season. Dylan, hand it over to you to talk about Rutgers going into the season.
Yeah, so Rutgers, as you know, last year had Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, like two highly touted freshmen, 5 stars, and the season really, I mean, there's no way to put it. I mean, they were awful. They were bottom of the Big Ten, losing record. I mean, just did not build a team around our two studs, right? And on top of it, we lost some really important players. Not even I'm talking about Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. We lost Lathan Somerville, stud freshman, to Washington. We lost Tyson Acuff, Jordan Derkak, and Zach Martini, all senior transfers that did play important roles on last year's team, and we will not be with them this year. We did bring in some key transfers to hopefully fill those roles, but a lot of them are kind of up in the air on how their production is going to look in the Big Ten. Like Tariq Francis, guard from NJIT, who we will cover that team later. But NJIT, like he averaged almost 20 on a bad team last year on poor efficiency. And as a small guard in the Big Ten, he's gonna need to be able to shot create to actually have a role on this team. There's Darren Buchanan Jr., who is a transfer from George Washington Jr., a lengthy forward who plays great defense, but his offensive skills are very questionable. And if he can't produce at a high rate, like, will he start? Will he be one of those go-to players? And then Bay Fall, 6'10" forward center from Kansas State, and he is the project. He's a project. He's bounced around two teams. I believe he will be entering his sophomore year, as he redshirted one of his years. He's a former McDonald's All-American, so the ceiling's through the roof. And I don't know how much to say about him. There's not much film about him. He's a lengthy center who stretches the floor well. I don't. He's very great on the defensive side of the ball. He blocks a lot of shots. At least in high school, he did. But how will he be on the offense? Does he have that touch in the paint that Big Ten centers often do? And will he be able to? Will he clog the center, or will he clog the paint, or can he space the floor? Because again, we have returners like Emmanuel Agbole, senior center, who is strictly a paint center and cannot stretch the floor. So will Bay Fall bring a little dynamic edge to the game that'll um help exploit Big Ten defenses? And then there's some incoming freshmen, actually, from a pretty big freshman class this year, bigger than last year's, that are kind of composed of 3 and 4 stars that are looking to have a role in this team, headlined by Lino Mark, point guard from New Jersey, and then the two international players, Dennis Badalau from Romania and Herm Zorno from Bosnia. And these players are like 19, 20 years old. They're kind of questionable players. Like, we don't know what we're gonna get out of these guys. They've been playing with adults. They've been playing in international European leagues, so they're experienced. They have more experience than high schoolers playing against kids their age. They played against full-grown adults, and that could play to an advantage for us. Harun Zerno was a Indiana commit, but once Indiana fired Mike Woodson, he flipped over to Rutgers as Indiana Rutgers often compete for recruits, which is surprising based on pipelines. But he flipped over to Rutgers, and he's supposed to be a sharpshooter and being able to kind of spread this floor and provide an extra spark that last year's team did not have. So very interested to see how this team kind of their chemistry and how they play together. They tip off tomorrow at 6 p.m. against Rider University, who again suffered their first loss against Virginia yesterday. Should be a good win to get off the season, but we'll see then.
Next team, we're going over Princeton. Coach Henderson looking at the same team, yet looking at a very different team. As we all know, the sensation Xavier Lee transferred out of Princeton, went over to the Florida Gators. Caden Pierce, former Ivy Player of the Year, did opt out of his senior season to enter the transfer portal next year. According, he said he wanted to just focus on his senior season, but some suspect it is due to NIL opportunities within the Ivy League. And Blake Peters, a senior, another player that they lost. Their three best players, three leading scorers for them, all gone for this season. But the hopeful news for Princeton is that they have almost everybody else returning for this season. Peyton Seals, Zio Kim, two sophomore shooters. That's their season playing time this year. CJ Happy, Malik Abdullahi, two players last year who did see some time, but should get a lot more this season with the departure of the three best players. One player that I would watch out for, and a player that I've been very high on at watching some Princeton film, Jackson Hickey, should be the primary player for the Tigers this year. He is an absolute bucket when I've been watching him. Other returners: Jacob Huggins, Jack Stanton, Dalen Davis, and Cooper Muller. But they do have six incoming freshmen: Ryan Mendez, Landon Clark, Jake Sussberg, Cash McSweeney, Sebastian Whitfield, and Jacob Hammond. All local freshmen coming in. And they do have an interesting pickup, Will Kutzler. He is a junior, but he was the captain of the Princeton club team. But Coach Henderson did say he played amazing on the club team and he's getting called up for this season. May or may not see some time this year. They start off the season playing it at Akron, at Akron on Saturday. Should be a good game for the Tigers. Overall this season, though, I don't see them doing too much in the Ivy with the departure of their three best players, especially Caden Pierce, who's supposed to take another step up, have another Ivy League Player of the Year level season this year, opting out. I don't know if Princeton's going to be that Ivy League team that's going to break into the March Madness this year.
Yeah, with you on that one, it's going to be pretty interesting to see Princeton even opening up against a former last year's March Madness team at the MAC in Akron. So no walk in the park there. And then there's Seton Hall, as we said yesterday. They kind of kicked it off against St. Peter's, and yeah, they only returned like players from last year that only averaged 3.5 points. So it was good to see them pick up the win against St. Peter's last night. Obviously, that's coming from an NEC school, right? So let's see if they can do this against Big East opponents. The last time they made March Madness was as an 8 seed in 2022, where they lost to TCU by 20 plus points in that round. So haven't been there in a while as a perennial basketball program they used to be. And then they're talking about Monmouth University. So Monmouth, they obviously the headline of their season of their offseason was losing Abdi Bashir Jr., amazing scoring guard to Kansas State University. I mean, as a Rutgers fan, dropped 30 on us when he played us last year.
Yeah, 38.
38, almost 40. I mean, Monmouth was not a good team though. They began 0-8, I think it was.
Yeah, 0-8 in their first 6 games.
Yeah, 0-8. So no expectations going into this year. They're picked to finish in the top six of the CAA conference, which isn't bad for them. They returning Jack Collins, who averaged 10 points per game last year, and he's picked to be a preseason second team All CAA. So he has high expectations going into this year as kind of their leader, their bucket, their go-to guy. And they also have some interesting transfers that are looking to make a role on this team. Kavion McLean is one of their transfers that they got from Texas Southern. He's a senior guard, but he won't play at least in the beginning of the season as there are infractions violated for the NCAA rules. I don't know the full details on what exactly happened. I believe it's something with having his final year and if he's allowed to play or not. But we'll see if he gets back onto the court because if he does, he was a beast at Texas Southern last year and is coming to a Monmouth team that is in desperate need of a scoring guard. They returning Doc Mordor, who's a 7'1" center who averaged 4 points a game last year. He'll have great length in a conference that isn't full of these 7 foot plus centers. So if he can take a step up from where he was last year, he could be a very dominant big. And then the only big time loss that they had in the offseason was Madison Durr, who transferred to rival UNCW, who did make the March Madness last year and put up a good fight against Texas Tech. And he averaged 12.5 last year, so that's going to be a big loss.
Moving on, two quick knockout teams. St. Peter's, the team that we once knew for the Doug Eddard days in their March Madness run. This year voted to be 11 out of 13 in the MAAC. Not very good for them. But two key returners they have is Bryce Eaton, sophomore going into this year, averaged 11 points per game last year. And forgive me for this one, Adeda Kumbo Bakar, 5 points per game last year on inefficient numbers, but still should be look to step up into a key role this year. They did bring in a former four-star recruit, Akeel Watson, from UMass. He didn't only average 4 points per game, but he should see a role. And their head coach, Coach Mason, calls it one of the best teams he's coached with 7 new players coming in this year for the Peacocks. Moving on to FDU, a team we talked about earlier, took a loss to Iowa State early in the year. They did lose 2 of their major players. Terrence Brown, averaging 20 points last year, transferred over to Utah, and Dylan Jones, who averaged 9.5, going over to Southern Utah. They did bring in some transfers. Noah Melson from Chattanooga, Tayshaw Jackson from Northern Colorado, Cyril Martinov from Eastern Kentucky. None of those guys did too much last year, but should be important. And they did bring in a D2 transfer in Joey Niesman. They did, like I said earlier, they did take a crushing loss to Iowa State yesterday, 50-88. But they should look to bounce back coming into this season.
Yeah, and then finally, just touch on Ryder. So they lost their 2 guys, their 2 leading scorers from last year. As they are bringing back their third scorer, as we mentioned earlier, Zion Cruz, who did have an off night yesterday. But their main guy that I think that is going to be producing the most, as we said, is Flash Burton. He only averaged slightly under 10 last year, but he's a quick, shifty guard who's got good speed to him, as the name kind of says. In a conference where it isn't like there are the studs of like the Big Ten, I think Flash Burton can really step up into that role and even be like one of the conference's premier guards. And we'll see how he performs against a Big Ten team like Rutgers tomorrow night because he didn't fare too well against ACC opponents, but Rutgers isn't the best of the best in the Big Ten. So Flash Burton will need to be take a big step for Ryder. And then they did pull up some transfers like Davis Bynum, Shamani Fuller, Daniel Helterhoff, Caleb Smith, Davion Williams, and Antoine Wilson. All looking to trying to get their spot on the rosters, and then only 3 freshmen coming in for Ryder. So not too big of a class, but we'll see if any of them can make a difference in this season. And that's about it for like kind of season previews for the New Jersey basketball teams. But
We
let's look at the
forgot
schedule.
one.
Oh, we did.
NJIT.
NJIT.
The more forgettable team, not blaming you for forgetting about them, but they are going into this season eighth out of 9 teams in their conference expected to finish near the bottom of their conference. They do have 6 newcomers: AJ Altabelli, Rocco Awad, David Bolden, and Zach Sherler. All their 4 freshmen, and 2 transfers: Jeremy Clayville coming in from St. Francis, and Melvin Ibankoli coming in from Missouri State, formerly Independence Community College, a JUCO transfer. But the players that they did lose, as we mentioned earlier, Tariq Francis, the star guard, did average 20 points last season. They lost Jake Goldberg to Cal Poly, Tim Moore Jr. to San Diego, and Walt Andrews to Division II Post University. Said earlier, they are expected to finish 8th out of 9, so not much to talk about there. But yeah, that right there wraps up all of the New Jersey basketball teams going into this season. This has been Turnpike Takes, where we review all New Jersey basketball all season long. We'll see you in the next one.